Hey guys, John the Con here, and welcome to my Getting Started with Warhammer video series. A series where we bring your Warhammer models to life. In this episode, we'll be talking about priming your models. Without primer, you won't be able to get paint to adhere to your model properly in order to achieve a great result. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's grab your favorite drink and let's get started. So let's start off with the basics. Now, you're going to need a good primer. So I am using the Army Painter War Paints Air Primer and the matte gray. Now, this comes in the War Paints Air starter set that is made exclusively, well, not really exclusively, but it works great for your airbrush. And I like to use a airbrush when it comes to priming and laying my base coats. Reason being, I am down here in Miami, Florida, and we have a lot of humidity. And you can go with a spray can or a rattle can. However, sometimes it tends to clump up in the high humidity that we have here. So I always use a airbrush. So I highly recommend this. As you've seen in my previous videos, this is another starter set that I bought that I love so much, the original paints, that I have a secondary one. And as you can see right here, here is the matte gray primer that we use, or that I use. Now, after you have your primer, before you get started, you're going to want some personal protection gears or some PPG. Now, these are great. It covers completely your nose and your mouth, and you have filters to breathe in and out on the left and the right. You could actually replace these pretty easily. They're super safe. They have gaskets here on the side, as well as a double filter in the actual side breathing filters themselves. So here, you basically will just put it into place. It can only go in one way. And once you have it in here, all you have to do is rotate it, and you'll be able to start using it. So this is your PPG. So remember to wear this if you're spray painting indoors. Now, I have concocted a little thing here with an air filter. So as you see here, this is always my backdrop. But just to show you, I actually have a fan that is reversed here. And what I do is I go ahead and turn it on high, and I put the filter in front of it. And from there, once I paint, it's an extra layer of protection, and the paint actually goes and gets sucked in here. So this is a simple thing that you could build at home. Just remember to have your filter cleaned out from time to time. This one I've used only for priming and for airbrushing, but I also paint in my garage. So I tend to open up my garage side door and my full garage door itself, and I get sufficient airflow. So between the actual mask and the doors being open and this makeshift, I would say, air, what you call it, like a air booth, airbrush booth, mixed with this, I am properly protected. Now, since I talked about the humidity here in Miami, Florida, the actual compressor comes with a filter right here. That's an air filter for moisture. And since I'm in my garage, it gets so hot that I was still getting clumps of paint and moisture in my lines. So I had to get a secondary filter. Now these are great. I highly recommend these, and they actually have an escape valve right here. So let me go ahead and turn on my airbrush. And as you can see, so you have a secondary uh, moisture trap here that you're able to release. So ever since I've gotten this second one, I haven't had any moisture come into my paint. Well, now that I have everything on, I want to bring to your attention one last piece that is crucial when it comes to painting. So you're going to want to get yourself some good nitro gloves, okay? Reason being is one, you don't get any paint on your hands, and two, when you actually are done priming your models, you do not want to touch them with your bare hands or fingers, and that is because there's going to be a very thin layer that's going to be applied onto it, and you don't want it to rub off because that is where your paint is actually going to stick to. And using the gloves will help with this immensely. Now, if you sit there and you start rubbing the actual model itself, um, without the gloves or with the gloves, you're going to be able to rub off paint, as you see right here. This one's the one that my son painted in, and he's 5 years old. He actually painted this in one of the shorts, but yeah, we actually went ahead and primed this one, and I let him go to town on the red and gold and the blue. I think he did a really great job. Um, but For 5 years old, and we actually based it. But yes, you definitely want to wear gloves. So for today's priming exercise, we're actually going to be priming one of my son's models. Now, these were or actually came in uh, from, I believe, the drugstore from Walgreens. And these are the Marvel Avengers, and they come with a mess load of Avengers here: Thanos, Captain America, Thor, Iron Man. There's a whole mess of them in here. And I'm going to use one of these just to show you an example on priming itself. Later on, we'll actually prime a full Warhammer model, and I'll show you basically how to start it all the way to end on the actual white scar, what I think. So what you want to do is what we talked about earlier, the dowels. Get your double-sided tape, so you can tear that off and press firmly on here on your dowel. Okay, put away your tape. And then from here, go ahead and pick up an edge and take off the top part and sit your model centered right there and push down. Now, that is not going anywhere, all right? So this is what we're going to be priming. Now, I took off my watch and I put on my nitro glove. And with this hand, I'm actually going to be using the airbrush, okay? So this is the hand that you want to protect, the one that's holding the actual model itself. And again, we're going to go ahead and prime it with the matte gray primer. Now, you want to shake this really, really, really well, okay? Just because a lot of it sits on the bottom, if it's been sitting for too long, just make sure you shake it properly for at least a minute or two. And then after that, just keep shaking it again. So we'll go ahead and load up our airbrush. All right, so now after you have shaken your primer, we're gonna go ahead and load the actual airbrush itself. So we're gonna go ahead and take off the cap right here. And we're gonna put a couple of drops. Now you see right there that loaded the bottom. going to go ahead and put the cap back on. And from there, you could go ahead and put your cap so you won't get any dust in it. And you could go ahead and give it a test. All right, so we're going to go ahead and test this area right here that we have in white. Now, what happens here is when you push down on the airbrush, only air comes out, okay? So once you push down and back, that actually releases the paint out of the gun itself. So once I push forward, I push it down, then I push back. You see how the paint starts coming in? You see right there. So all I'm doing is pushing down into it, releasing air, and at the same time pushing back to control how much paint comes out of the actual airbrush itself. It's very easy, okay? It's not intimidating at all. You can just go ahead and practice that way. So once you feel comfortable enough, let's go ahead and let's check to make sure we didn't release too much paint and we still have some in there, so that's perfect. Go ahead and close that out, and let's start actually priming our Thor here. So we'll go ahead and just start off from the top. Little by little, thin coats does the job. Now, you want to keep turning the model as you do this, so that way you don't pull that much paint into it. So as you can see here, he is starting to cover up nicely. So let's go ahead and let's cover him so he's not showing any yellow on his body anymore. Now, I like to use this pulsating method. That way I make sure that the paint's coming out and distributing nicely. And I like to rotate the model all around just to make sure that I get a nice coverage everywhere around the actual model itself. I'm also controlling how much paint comes out on certain areas, and notice the distance that I have on the actual model itself. All right, now I'm not too up close or I'm not too far back. About, I would say, like 3 to 4 inches away from it the whole time. And then you'll be able to gauge this because you'll be able to see the paint actually hit the model itself. And then you'll be able to see that it doesn't clump it up. And now you'll start to see the actual details everywhere. So look at his hammer or measuring. There we go. Probably butchered that name for the hammer, but as you can see here, he is no longer fully yellow. So just keep going. Just do thin layers until he is fully covered. Because remember, without this, your paint won't adhere right to the actual model itself. So look at the inside leg. So just keep on rotating. And wherever you see any spots that you've missed, just go ahead and go over it. So once you're done with your model, you should see it completely covered from all angles with the primer. Now, as you can see here, I gave this a minute, or I give it 5 minutes to dry. And if you see any areas that you missed, just go ahead, load up your airbrush, and go ahead and hit it again. Okay. Now, this is what it used to look like. And this is it now primered. So now you have a good solid base. Not only are you able to see way more details as opposed to here, but now your paint is actually going to stick to it perfectly. Now, once you're done with your airbrush, it's important for you to actually clean it. So as you can see here, we have some primer left over here that didn't go through. So what I like to use is Airbrush Medium to clean it up. So what I do is I go ahead and open it, and I put a couple of drops in there, fill it up pretty well. And a little trick I like to do is get a piece of paper, apply pressure to the nozzle, and just push air into it. And as you can see here, it's bubbling up. And what that's doing, it's that it's taking that thinner or that medium, and it's cleaning out the airbrush itself. Now from here, remember that I said, let me fix my microphone right here. So I use my sink here, and I go ahead and run the water. And you put this down. And what I do is I go ahead and just release that thinner through the actual air gun itself. So I go ahead and dip it upside down. As you can see, that primer is gone. Then I run some water in it, and I blow it out. See? So let me just go ahead and turn off that water. And as you can see right here, just by doing that, we have it pretty clear. And you could take your paper and go ahead and just clean it out. And you can see no more primer. And you can just blow out air, and you can see it should be just water and whatever remnants are left of the actual primer or water in there. All right, and here we go. There you go. It's clean. So with that, that covers priming your model with an airbrush. So this is the after, this is the before. And that is going to give you a good solid base to start painting your model. Now, I did this on a mock model, or the Green Army Man, basically, and not a Warhammer model, just because those are a little bit more expensive. And like me, I started out by doing this, just learning the basics on how to actually prime. And once I did that and felt comfortable, then from there, I went ahead and jumped onto one of my Warhammer models. Now, this is the primer coat, and I gave this guy my base coat of white, since I paint white scars. So with that, that covers our priming video. Stay tuned for actually priming, setting the base color, and from there actually starting to paint our Warhammer models. And we'll actually paint, in my specialty, the white scars in the next coming videos. So thank you so much for watching. Cheers, and have a wonderful rest of your day or evening.